Good evening. Welcome back to another Python Fundamentals session. Today we'll be discussing decision making, how we can write code where we need to make a decision, and based on a conditional statement, we will make a decision. So if a condition is true, make this decision. Or if not, do another make another or make a different decision, right? So in the previous video, we learned about how to collect inputs from the user using the input function. We created a command line program that calculated the cost of a trip, right? Now, we also learned about typecasting and how to convert from one data type to another in the previous video. So now in this session, it's all about decision-making using Python. So we will dive deeper into the Boolean data type and comparison operators. Then from there, we will go into if and else statements and how to use them to make decisions. All right. So the objectives of this session, we're going to learn how to read, comprehend, trace, adapt, and create Python programs that uses Boolean values, true or false, comparison operators, if statements for one condition, if and else statements for two conditions. All right. So let's jump into it. I'm just going to run through the slide quickly, then we're going to jump onto Visual Studio Code. So Boolean data type, simply put, true or false. Those are the two values in the Boolean data type. Something's either true or it's either false. And so we use this to check like a condition. So I want to compare two values. Are the values the same? Is this greater than? And so Python will do that check, and it will return either true if it's the same value, or if that comparison is true, and false if that comparison is not. So, but let me explain that a bit more clearly. We have comparison operators, and from mathematics, if you remember, we have the greater than or equals to, less than, or less than or equal to. So now the new ones here are the first one where you have equals to, where you have two equal signs, right? And then the second one is exclamation mark and the equals to, which checks if this is not equal to, all right? So how do you do a Boolean operation? You have one operand, a Boolean operator, and another operand, all right? We will show you this in the Visual Studio Code. So conditional statement. So decision making. So this is the syntax of how you write an if statement in Python. So you start with the if, right? Over here, if, and then, okay, it's supposed to be in small letters, but if, right? Boolean condition, right? So there's a check here. And if this Boolean condition returns true, right? So this Boolean condition can return true or false. However, if it returns true, right, we're going to execute this code. And at the end here, the syntax requires you to put a colon there, and you see that there's like a tab indentation here. Usually Python would do that automatically for you, but however, if you are writing your code and somehow you notice that there's no indentation, then you're going to have an error, right? So just note that. So if this Boolean condition is true, execute this code, right? If not, well, it's not going to execute the code. So here's the flow for that, right? So an if statement is essentially a conditional code that allows you to check if a required condition is met, right? So if this question is true, then do this, else do something else, right? So that's how the if else statement work. And we can look at it on this flow diagram. So Python starts, it gets to this expression, right? Expression, well, that should be expression, gets to this expression, and then if it's true, we're going to execute the statement in the if branch. If it's not true, right, we're going to execute the statement in the else branch, right? And then we're going to stop, right? So once, it's just here, okay, expression, is it true? Do the stop. False, else, stop, right? I'm trying to I'm emphasizing on that because when we get to loops and while loops, you see that it's not just a simple stop, right? Okay. And this is an if-else statement when you have more else conditions, but we'll jump into this code in Visual Studio Code. So essentially you have one expression and then it does the check, right? And so if this first condition is true, it's going to execute this code, right? And then if there's a statement, then it's just going to go to the next line, right? To the next, it's gonna ignore all the other conditions and just continue on with the code, right? And then, so now if this condition is not true, it's going to say, okay, let me check test condition true. Test condition 2. If it's true, I'm going to execute that code. And then just like before, continue on with the code, and then so forth and so on. So it moves on. If this is not true, it's going to try that. It's going to, and then we go to the else, right? So essentially, what I want you to see right now is that when you write a if statement, it's good practice to always have the else catch, right? Let's now, I think this is the last slide. Let's now jump into Visual Studio Code. See you there now.